Good morning, and welcome to the joint meeting of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means and the Senate Committee on Finance. Committee Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Dondero Loop. Senator Goycochea. Senator Harris. Senator Neal. Senator Nguyen. Senator Severs-Gansert. Senator Titus. Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Backus. Assemblywoman Brown-May. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblyman Miller. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Yeager. Chairman Monroe-Moreno.
And I am here. Will you please mark members who were absent during roll call present as they arrive? We have 3 budget presentations this morning: the Governor's Office of Energy, the Legislative Council Bureau, and Nevada Gaming Control Board. But before we get started, I want to remind everyone to mute or turn off your electronic devices. When you step up to the table, please turn on the mic, state your name, and spell your name for the record. State your name each time you talk. I know it's repetitive, but it helps with our record keeping. And so with that, we will get the morning started with the Governor's Office of Energy, and I welcome Director McClinton to the table.
Good morning, Chair Monroe-Moreno and Joint Committee members. For the record, Dwayne McClinton, that is DWAYNE-MCCLINTON. I am the Director of the Governor's Office of Energy. With me today, being that it's my 4th week on the job, I have additional staff with me to help answer any questions you may have at the conclusion of this presentation. And with that said, I have with me my Deputy Director, Denise Froelich. I have with me my program managers, Laura Wickham and Robin, bear with me, Yoakum, thank you, I'm sorry. And in addition, I have with me Daniel Marlowe, the Administrator from the Administration Service Division.
Good morning and welcome to you all.
Thank you. I do apologize, it's a different role for me, so bear with me.
You don't bite.
We are pleased today to present to you a review of the agency's 2024-2045 biennial budget. To start, our mission is to ensure the wise development of Nevada's energy resources in harmony with the local economic needs and to position Nevada to lead the nation in renewable energy production, energy conservation, exportation of energy, and transportation electrification. Our authority can be found under NRS 701 and 701A, which directs the office to manage energy-related programs, facilitate cooperation between stakeholders, advise the governor on energy policies, collaborate with local, regional, and federal partners to ensure a reliable and sustainable energy system. Our agency focuses on 5 primary areas, which are energy efficiency, renewable energy, energy assurance, transportation electrification, and transmission and markets. You can see a few of our programs here on our slides. Our current performance measures include percent increase in renewable energy generations, percent reduction in per capita energy consumption. As of today, we have met our current goals of percent reduction in energy consumption in the state-owned buildings, percent of EV charging infrastructure along state highways. This is an overview of our current organization. We are structured for 12 positions totaling, and we are currently have 10 of 12 positions with 2 vacancies. That is a 17%, roughly a 17% vacancy rate. Here is a potential look at what our agency structure could be. Additional positions are intended to be based in Southern Nevada, given the agency representation throughout the state. Additional positions are based on federal funding notwithstanding. Funding for budget account 4868, administration shows $1.3 million in revenue, $1.2 million in expenditures. This budget account is comprised of our renewable energy funds, DOE state energy programs, SIP grant funds, and application fees. Across the next few slides, we're going to highlight areas of the budget that are different from the last time we came before you. We are currently contracting with a vendor to revise and deliver an updated and robust state emergency security plan. The contract was approved by the Board of Examiners on March the 14th, 2023. The project will run from now through November of 2023 and will result in needs assessment, a completed plan, and a tabletop exercise. The Governor's Office of Energy is a sub-recipient under DEM award, Building Resilience, Infrastructure, and Communities, our BRIC program. The BRIC program is funded by FEMA and administered through a partnership with the Nevada Division of Emergency Management. Sub-recipients, the City of Reno and the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada will receive funding with the primary goal of researching, designing, and testing autonomous microgrids for critical infrastructure in order to ensure the operability and prevent power outages in case of natural disasters. I do apologize. There in your forms, in your handout, you'll see a slide for slide 10. Unfortunately, it was brought to my attention yesterday evening that contract had to be recirculated and re-signed, so I'm not at liberty to discuss slide 10 at this moment. Again, I do apologize. GOE has one enhancement. It is the standard enhancement to replace computer equipment per EIT's replacement schedule. And for 4868, that will conclude today's presentation. We are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. I think we have a few questions for you, and we will start with Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, and I don't know, this might be something that you discussed as being recirculated. So, because I did have a question. So, we did allocate some coronavirus funds for a project to gather data on electricity usage and emissions in state-owned buildings. And so I was just wondering what updates you might be able to provide and indicate if that's going to be a one-time study, or if it's intended to be a one-time study, or if it's intended to be an ongoing data gathering process over time.
For the record, Dwayne McClinton, being that this is my 4th week on the job, I'm going to have to defer to my deputy director to answer.
Denise Froelich, for the record, F-R-O-H-L-I-C-H. That is the slide that we had to remove because the contract is still being signed, so we cannot speak on that one right now, but we can follow up when we are able to.
Thank you for that. So yeah, as soon as you can share some updates on that, I think that'd be helpful. And then you mentioned some of the federal funding that's coming here. Are there any match requirements that you know of at this time to harness some of the potential federal funding that your office is receiving?
Thank you, Assembly, for the question. Not at this time. Been in this new role, Dwayne McClendon for the record. Not at this time. My approach to it is to leave no money on the table. We're going after everything that we can possibly find as far as federal funding go to ensure, again, Nevada has reliable, affordable energy.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Hodeggy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my questions are completely along the same lines as my colleagues. And so I think I missed your answer, but I had questions regarding that, the ARPA dollars as well, because we gave you $5 million during one of our IFC meetings. And so my concern is that those monies aren't going to be expended by the time we have to return them. And so I don't know if, I think you said you can't answer questions relating to this project, but could you give us as much detail as possible? Because my understanding is there is no contract, but the plan is to expend these monies in this next biennium, but nothing's kind of been put in place. So can you talk to me about how you can guarantee us that those dollars are going to be used before the deadline?
Thank you for the question, Denise Froelich, for the record. Yes, that is the one that we are not able to speak on in detail, including the cost schedule and the project schedule. However, what we can say at this point is the RFP was scoped for the project to be completed well within that time frame, and those funds need to be expended by December 31st, 2026, and the project is, again, scoped within that time frame. Okay. And we are with the contract at this time. That does not impact that project.
Okay. And then I'm not sure if you can answer this. Oh, sorry, Madam Chair. Okay. Is there a signed contract yet? Yes or no? Just a, you know.
For the record, Dwayne McClendon, no.
Okay. And then I also had some questions regarding federal funds. I know there is a lot of federal funds available. I think there's like the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Act, the Home Energy Performance-Based, whole house rebates, energy efficiency and conservation block grants. There's just a lot of federal funds that available that were part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and a lot of those go and help low-income families. So can you talk to me about, you said you weren't going to leave any federal funds on the table, but can you talk to us about what federal funds you are pursuing?
For the record, Dwayne McClendon, thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. Currently, we are looking at programs that will benefit Nevadans, and we are going to pursue, again, everything that we can possibly pursue that will benefit Nevadans.
And I guess just an easier, Madam, just one last question. And I guess just an easier question, are you guys pursuing any dollars or grants from the infrastructure bill that was passed?
For the record, Dwayne McClendon, yes, we will be pursuing money from the IIJ and the IRA.
Thank you.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone, for this morning here. I have a question regarding your performance measures that was on the slide. And it's actually, I think, very impressive, the percent reduction in energy consumption in the state-owned buildings. I was just wondering if you could give kind of a high level, what are the major things that have changed that produce such great energy savings that we're seeing here? And I see we're running about 30-some% up to 40% is what's projected for 21, and then closer to 50% for the next few years. What are the big changes that have helped with that?
For the record, Dwayne McClendon, at this time, I'd like to defer to Matt Tuma.
Matthew Tuma, Deputy Director for the Department of Administration. The efficiencies that have been achieved in state-owned buildings over the last couple of decades have been really wrapped up into the operations of buildings and grounds, as well as the operations of some of the other departments that manage their buildings on their own. They all have budgets for renewable energy or energy efficiency projects, things like changing out lights to high-efficiency lights, as well as larger in the CIP. when you look at the CIP, I know we've come before the subcommittee on this body on a number of CIP projects, but a lot of the maintenance projects, really the HVAC projects, when we change out those HVAC systems in buildings, those are where we receive a ton of energy efficiency improvements when we're doing those things. And so it's part of our normal operations to improve our efficiencies as we're upgrading our buildings, as we're doing those maintenance projects, and as we're building new buildings. And well, we haven't been building a whole lot of new buildings, but as we build new buildings, we focus on energy efficiency and overall efficiencies.
Thank you.
Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm just super curious. Mr. McClinton, I know you just started, so this really isn't, I guess, directed to you. But I guess I'm wondering why doesn't your supporting cast have very specific information on some of the questions that have been asked? And I guess because I'm noticing like body language of certain members sitting in the audience that may look like they wanted to jump in and save. And so I'm trying to understand why your deputies don't know more information.
Denise Froelich, for the record, thank you for the question. My director and I are coordinating. We're learning each other and coordinating our responses to each other. I can answer a little bit more to one of the earlier questions. To one of the questions about IIJA funding, we've submitted an application for 40101D, and that application for the nation is due, it's actually due next week, so we're still pending responses from the federal government on that one. We also submitted a concept paper for 40107, and we partnered with the PUC for a concept paper on 40103B, and those are both part of the GRIP funding stream under IIJA. We also have a $200,000 award that we did receive under Section 40108, which is part of our SEP formula grant, and it provided that funding for the State Energy Security Plan that you heard about in one of the slides. We also have under Section 40109, which is also a SEP increase, which is about $4.6 million increase that we will have to be able to spend over the next 5 years. That application has been submitted. We just got another comment and question about that from DOE, which we've responded to this week, and those funds are expected to be released to us in spring or summer of this year.
Thank you. That's much better.
You're welcome.
And I don't have a question, but I guess just two statements. This body, for the last 2 legislative sessions, has made it very clear of where we feel the state should be going and policy decisions that we've made. That has a lot to do with your department. And I would like to see those policies that were put in place continue under the work of the new administration. I think that it will. But the person that held the seat before you made promises to this legislative body that new hires would be in Southern Nevada. That did not happen. I would just like to ask, what is, as you look to place staff and personnel, what will you be doing as you look for where those positions will be, where those new hires, will there be new hires, and how will you help with the furthering the policy decisions that was made by the legislative body in the work in your department?
For the record, Dwayne McClinton, and this is a question I can't answer. Myself, I will be based in Southern Nevada. For the 2 vacancies that we currently have, they will most likely be based in Southern Nevada as well, to answer your first question. And your second question again, Madam Chair?
Just that have been policy decisions made, most of them unanimously out of this body for the last 2 legislative sessions. Wanting to make sure that you're going to continue to follow along with those policy decisions and the work that your division does. I've done a lot of work with federal grants in this building, and leaving no dollar on the table is vitally important, and I think it helps throughout the state to further those policy decisions. Just wanted to make sure you're going to continue that work.
For the record, Dwayne McClinton, we will continue with our current programs as well as look for funding for new programs as well.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, seeing none. Congratulations on your new role. And I told you we didn't bite. Thank you so much for the presentation. We can look forward to continue working with you all.
Thank you all.
With that, we will close the budget presentation for the Department of Energy, and we will open the hearing, our budget presentation, for our next item on our agenda, which is the Legislative Council Bureau. And welcome our director to the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Brenda Erdos, the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau, and I have with me Dan Rushin, who is our CFO, and he's going to do a lot better job than I would of running through all of the provisions, but I'm happy to answer questions, and then I'll go through the last part. So thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the joint committees. For the record, my name is Daniel Rushin, Chief Financial Officer of the Legislative Council Bureau, spelled DANIELRUSHIN. And today we're here to present the recommended budget for the 2023 to 2025 biennium for the legislative branch of the state of Nevada. The budget is recorded in 3 budget accounts in the state's system. That's budget account 327-2631, which encompasses the operations of the Legislative Council Bureau, as well as the Legislative Commission and interim committees. Budget account 327.
Excuse me, Mr. Rushin, could you just move the mic a little bit closer to you? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Thank you. Budget account 327-2626 for the interim legislature, and budget account 741-1330 for the state printing office. So we'll begin with budget account 327-2631 for the Legislative Council Bureau. The Legislative Council Bureau, or the LCB, is the centralized administrative agency that serves both houses of the Nevada Legislature. The LCB is governed by the Legislative Commission, managed by Director Erdos, and consists of the following 5 divisions: the Administrative Division, the Audit Division, Fiscal Analysis Division, Legal Division, and the Research Division. The budget development process for this biennium was based on the premise that in the previous biennium, the agency had received reduced appropriations in response to the COVID pandemic. However, despite the reduced appropriations, the LCB was required to provide increased and enhanced levels of service to the legislature during the 2021 regular session and the 2 specialist sessions that occurred in that biennium. These services included the expansion of the information technology infrastructure to enable the legislature to conduct remote public meetings and for LCB employees to work remotely. Other services expanded during this time included legislative police operations, janitorial operations, and facility modifications to help mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to these circumstances, the appropriations received in the previous biennium were insufficient to cover the LCB's operating costs. This required that the operations of the LCB be partially funded from the fund balance of the legislative fund. Therefore, the process for the 2023 to 2025 biennium budget focused on determining the actual appropriations needed for the agency's operations. As a result, the total appropriations requested for this biennium represent an increase from the previous biennium. The general fund appropriations requested by the LCB from the State General Fund for the LCB budget account total approximately $46.8 million for fiscal year 2024 and $47.3 million for fiscal year 2025. The LCB budget account includes base funding for the continuation of 334 full-time equivalent positions for the 2023-2025 biennium, and it also includes 2 enhancement decision units that we'll discuss later that add 2 positions for a total of 336. The staff of the LCB provides a variety of services to legislators and the public. Staff are required to maintain political neutrality and avoid participation in partisan activities or groups. All of you should have a copy of the budget presentation memo, and on page 2, there is a table at the bottom that shows the detail of the funding requests for fiscal years 2024 and 25. The Legislative Commission and the committees that meet during the interim are included in the base budget. The base budget for these activities are approximately $411,000 for fiscal year 2024 and $299,000 for fiscal year 2025. The budget for these activities has been increased from the previous biennium to allow for increased travel costs resulting from the resumption of in-person meetings in the interim period between sessions. We'll now go through a brief description of each division of the LCB and a discussion of specific items pertinent to their budget. The Administrative Division provides operating and technical support to other LCB divisions and the legislature. The Administrative Division includes the Director's Office, which provides for the LCB's senior management functions, including human resources. The Director's Office also manages the gift shop, the State Printing Office, and the Legislative Police Department. This division is also responsible for accounting, audio and video operations, communications, inventory, information technology services, janitorial maintenance of buildings and grounds, purchasing, managing the parking facility, and shipping and receiving. The base budget for the Administrative Division includes funding for 144 full-time permanent positions. This is an increase from the previous biennium due to an increase in administrative capacity in the Director's Office related to the human resources and senior management functions. Also, there are additional repair and maintenance costs for the LCB's facilities, increases in information technology infrastructure and operating costs, and increases in personnel costs, primarily in the Director's Office, Facilities Unit, ITS Unit, and Legislative Police. The major building maintenance projects are included in a separate budget request, which we'll discuss at the end of this presentation. The base budget for the Administrative Division includes appropriations totaling approximately $20 million for each of the fiscal years of the biennium. The Audit Division of the LCB performs audits of the executive and judicial branches of the state government as part of the legislature's oversight responsibility for public programs. The Audit Division also ensures that an audit of the Nevada state government, referred to as the single audit, which is a compliance audit of all the federal programs for the state, is conducted each year. This audit is necessary to ensure the continued federal funding of all programs in the state. The base budget for the Audit Division includes funding for 34 full-time permanent positions. The base budget includes general fund appropriations totaling approximately $5.6 million for fiscal year 2024 and $5.7 million for fiscal year 2025, and reflects an increase primarily in personnel costs related to the reclassification of certain positions during fiscal year 2023 in an effort to retain experienced staff and improve recruitment prospects for vacant positions. The Fiscal Analysis Division provides the legislature with the capability for independent review and analysis of budgetary, tax, and fiscal matters. This division examines the governor's recommended budget, suggests possible adjustments, and provides expenditure and revenue analysis to aid the legislative money and tax and revenue committees. This division is also responsible for providing for administrative support and revenue projections for the Economic Forum and for ensuring that fiscal notes are provided for legislation as required by law. The base budget for the Fiscal Analysis Division includes funding for 33 full-time permanent positions. It also includes 3 decision units, which we'll now discuss. Decision Unit E225 would add 1 full-time economist position at a grade 43 to the division and would require approximately $142,000 of additional appropriations in each of the fiscal years of the 2023-2025 biennium. Decision Unit E226 adds 1 full-time administrative assistant position at a grade 30 to the division and would require approximately $69,000 of additional appropriations in fiscal year 2024 and $72,000 in fiscal year 2025. The last decision unit would actually eliminate funding for the EdGate Insight contract that was historically utilized by the LCB to collect, compile, and report various revenue and expenditure data from Nevada school districts and charter schools. In recent years, this data has largely been utilized by the Nevada Department of Education to comply with the various data reporting requirements of the federal Every Student Succeeds Act. Accordingly, this expenditure is recommended to be reflected in the Nevada Department of Education's assessment and accountability budget beginning in the next biennium. This decision unit would reduce appropriations by approximately $390,000 in both fiscal years of the biennium. The legal division of the LCB drafts bills, resolutions, and legal opinions and provides committee counsel for all interim studies and most standing legislative committees, drafts, and reviews administrative regulations. The division also serves as the legal advisor to the legislature and other divisions of the LCB. The legal division also codifies and publishes the NRS and NAC state agency pamphlets and several compilations of selected portions of the NRS. The staff produces an electronic version of the statutes and regulations and other publications titled the Official Nevada Law Library. This division also produces and distributes the BDR list and the Register of Administrative Regulations. The base budget for the legal division includes funding for 74 full-time permanent positions in the 2023-2025 biennium and includes general fund appropriations totaling approximately $9.7 million for fiscal year 24 and $9.9 million for fiscal year 25. The Research Division is the general information and service arm of the legislature. It conducts research into a wide variety of subjects at the request of legislators, legislative committees, other state and local officials, and citizens of Nevada. It also responds to inquiries concerning Nevada's government, laws, and public policy issues from residents, counterpart agencies, and public officials in other states. The Research Division employees also provide primary staff support for most standing committees and some statutory and interim committees. The base budget for the Research Division includes funding for 49 full-time permanent positions and includes appropriations of approximately $5.9 million for fiscal year 24 and $6 million for fiscal year 25. That concludes Budget Account 2631. Moving on to Budget Account 2626 for the Interim State and Assembly. During the approximately 20-month interim period between legislative sessions, the operations of the interim Senate and Assembly administrative staff are recorded in this budget account. The base budget includes funding for 7 full-time permanent positions for the Senate and 7 full-time permanent positions for the interim Assembly. And includes general fund appropriations totaling approximately $1.8 million for each of the fiscal years of that biennium. Finally, Budget Account 1330, the State Printing Office. The State Printing Office does not receive any general fund appropriations. It is funded entirely by sales of printing documents. The printing office itself provides the legislature, other state agencies, and other local governments in Nevada with printed materials. And the budget contains funding for 19 full-time permanent positions, which is consistent for each fiscal year. And again, there are no general fund appropriations for this budget account. And that concludes my presentation of the operating section of our budget. I'll turn it over to Director Erdos to discuss a separate request for capital improvement items, which is the last page of the memo.
Before we move on to the capital improvement items, I think we have a few questions on what you've already presented. Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. For both of you, I just want to, before asking the question, just state how much our staff does for us and just how much I appreciate it. And I have a feeling that everybody on this board does as well. So don't want to speak for the whole body, but they are wonderful, and I know right now they are working very hard for us. So thank you very much for that. But speaking of staff, we keep on hearing about state agencies having a problem with staffing. Is that same occurrence happening for LCB? Because I know we've got a lot of people that have retired over the years. So with recruitment and retention, what is kind of the opening percentage besides the secretarial attaches and assistants that help us during the legislative timeframe?
Wait, I'm sorry. Brenda Erdos for the record. I'm not sure what opening percentage.
How many employment openings do we have at this time, or are all positions filled? That sort of idea.
Sorry, I appreciate that. We were able to, we only have a few openings right now. It's really critical, as you mentioned, for us in the LCP to have all of our positions filled. We don't really have much redundancy at all, just because of the way that the every other year thing plays out. But what we have done to help that is to do some reclassifications that were necessary. We had some big areas. The audit division was one where we had 5 positions that weren't filled for over a year, and so we just needed to reclassify to make that work. We had the same thing in with the legislative police. When you don't meet the standards for what everyone else is paying, what happens is you just don't get any applicants, and that's happened to us quite a bit in actually a lot of positions, but we've been able to do reclassifications and move up enough to get people to come in. We also, for broadcasting, for example, in needing all the people that it takes to currently and hopefully in the future we would be able to upgrade that equipment and the process so that we could perhaps be a little bit more efficient in running the meetings, but right now to provide for the call-in part of the meetings in each one, as well as the extra Zooms and things like that. We have been able to work with people who are not on site. A lot of them are in Nevada, but some of them are not, and that's who greets you when you come on, things like that. And those, so we've made some arrangements that we wouldn't have done normally to try to work these things out. But it is, I can't tell you that we get a lot of applicants, or it has been very difficult. But right now we're doing pretty well in terms of able to staff up for a session.
Thank you, and I'm so sorry I couldn't remember the word vacancy rate, but thank you very much.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's okay, I have 2 questions. Okay, thank you so much. I'll start with the one that's more closely related to this topic. Is there any plan to, in the future, maybe increase the legal staff?
I think there isn't a plan on the table that we're asking for today. Part of that is a space issue. Part of that is having a manageable staff and efficient government. That part of it, that we have regulations that we do in the interim, but and the workload is met during the interim by this number of attorneys, but it's certainly something we'd be willing to look at. I think what you're getting at, if I'm understanding you correctly, just to be clear, is so that the drafting would come out more quickly. And that's been a perennial problem, and we have tried, in the past to increase staff. It's increased greatly since I started here, which there was like 10 of us drafters total, but we are not we are not there yet.
Yeah, maybe I gave it away too much, but yeah, you hit it. I have this crazy dream that maybe we'll have bills before the end of February instead of doing 100 on March 20th in each house. But, maybe it'll remain a dream, but I hope that, I hope you share that dream and that there is some plan to move us in a direction where we can engage with legal a bit more so that we're not seeing bills for the first time on March 19th and then making this decision of, am I just going to give this up? Do I fix it? Yeah, so it'd be nice, and I think the public thinks occasionally that we are hiding the ball because bills come out late, and it doesn't fare well for the relationship between the legislature and the public. But that's that. Okay, go ahead, please. Yeah.
I would just, I'd probably be remiss if I didn't add one thing. Another thing that could really help that is if you were able to move the deadlines up for requesting BDRs. If you look at the setup we have now, a lot of the BDRs requested very close to session, and it just takes a few very large bills to really overwhelm the system. And so if it was possible to have BDRs requested sooner, that would help a little bit.
Thank you. My second question is about the diversity of LCB staff. Do you know the current makeup of LCB staff? Is there any effort to make LCB staff reflect the state of Nevada a little bit more? Is there a plan?
That's one of the things that, sorry, Brenda Erdos for the record. That is one of the things that I was really excited to add the human resources folks that we now have. That's a fairly new unit, and that's one of the main goals that they have. It isn't as easy as I thought it would be to bring people to Carson City, and that's an issue that we're facing.
Yeah, I think that might be the biggest impediment. And until we open up some more space and opportunities down south, it's going to be a little bit difficult to achieve that goal. But thank you for keeping your eye on that ball. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for your presentation. And I have to echo my colleague's sentiment that thank you for, I know you're all working incredibly hard right now with a lot of pressure on you. So thank you for that. I just wanted to, if you could summarize for me, total employed people by LCB and how many are in the north and how many are in the south?
This is Brenda Erdos. The total number in the south is 5 admin employees who run all the services like video and provide interface with the public. And then we have, I think there's still 2, maybe 3 researchers who's work in the research division, but in part of CSU. And then there's 1 policy analyst, I think, in the research division who are housed down there, and they don't always work in the office. They can work at home too, but so there's a total of 8 people.
8 people. And what's the total count for the agency?
For the record, this is Dan Russian, Chief Financial Officer. I can tell you that, as stated before, the budget includes funding for full-time positions of 369, including all enhancement decision units. As of the vacancy rate, don't have that information right now, but I could get that to you later. But the budget does include funding for 369 positions total.
Thank you.
Senator Ganser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to follow up on the legal conversation. I know we have a number of people who have retired or are ready to retire, and I know even one of our key contacts on the Senate side in legal is retired and has come back as a contractor. I want to know if you could inform me about how many people we have on contract and if you have enough resources, because as you mentioned, we have this sort of the ebb and flow of the legislature where we have this really intense period and probably maybe 4 to 6 months prior, and then it slows down. And and also I was negligent not to start out with a thank you like everyone else. We so appreciate the work, and we know it's very complex and difficult work, and finding people at the level of expertise that we need is hard to do and hard to keep. And again, we have so many retirees. So the main question though was really about contractors, and if you've been successful in contracting, if you have the resources to be able to continue to do that at the levels you require.
For the record, Brenda Erdos, we were able to get 1 more person to come back on contract, but that's about it. It is difficult to find attorneys who are willing to work in this area partially because between the workload and the salaries of attorneys in government, it is difficult to keep people here. And a part of that too is that once we are able to train people, it takes about 5 years to get really efficient at, knowing all of that you need to do as an attorney. And it is very tempting for those folks to go into the lobbying side of the world or other private positions. So it is difficult to recruit for more attorneys.
Thank you. If I can follow up, just as far as like resources, when you contract, are you able to contract at market rate levels? Because I think it is hard to find people to come back, and then also, like remote work. I think this type of work is actually very well suited to remote work. So I guess I don't know if there's an answer to that question or not, but I think you would have broad support to try to get folks on contract to help you who have the expertise that you need. And I think we all agree too, we recognize that it takes years to garner that expertise, but I just want to make sure you've got the resources for that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for everything that you do. I would be remiss if we didn't start with that, obviously, and all of the great work that you do all year long and throughout the entire biennium. I would like to personally thank you for your efforts relative to accessibility and engaging the members of our disability community. I know that we've done a lot of really great improvements with regard to our Zoom meetings and allowing people with mobility issues to participate in many of our meetings. My question is really about the plan going forward. You and I had an opportunity to work on sign language interpreters and accessibility for members of the deaf or hard of hearing community as a way to engage that specific community in some of our communications. But I'm curious to know, going forward, is there an in-house expert that is looking at further accessibility issues for people who are perhaps low vision or blind or have other types of disability issues that we can help them engage in the process? Do we have any in-house expertise, or is there a plan going forward to continue to enhance accessibility to our systems?
Thank you for the question, Brenda Rose. For the record, we actually are putting a lot more effort and folks into getting more engagement and more. The main thing is the tools for us. We now have specific people assigned to find the ASL and other communication, solving communication issues. And we're also, in fact, one of our CIP asks is to help with some of the things that are still in this building that are not, that don't work for a lot of folks. And the biggest one that is of concern to me personally is the restrooms in the front of the building, the old building, are not. It's going to take. We finally figured out how to do it to make these restrooms ADA compliant completely. They're technically ADA compliant because we haven't redone them, and so the requirement's not there. But what we were shooting for is to actually have all of the current ADA requirements met in these bathrooms. And the problem is that when they were built, everything was too small, and we have done the things that we can do without major overhauls. But at this point, we have assessed all of what we would need to do that, and that's one of our projects that could either be done this biennium, or it could be phased in, doing some restrooms at a time. But we are also able to, in our construction projects, make a lot of difference. I don't know if you were aware, but the east entrance across from the parking garage, the slope there went in two directions, and it was way too steep to meet any requirements. The ramps that we had on both sides were at least 6 inches too narrow. I can't explain why, why these things happened or how that all worked, but we are being able to make those changes, and so both on the building side as well as working to do better in the interface. So our human resources folks now that we have some are working on that as well.
Thank you, follow-up chair. Thank you for that. I sincerely appreciate them. We had a gentleman who had mobility issues who had a hard time hitting the microphone button, right? So even just to come and interact in testimony. So mobility issues really in our rooms as well. And how do we allow a person with a wheelchair to access without having to move a chair, right? So how do we build that into our long-term thought process? So I appreciate the good work that you've done. If I could just follow up about language translation, right? Is there also a plan to diversify the languages that we have our materials available in, or is there some standardization there?
We are working on that. Again, Brenda Erdos for the record. We have done a lot better with Spanish so far, and we are working on the other languages. We do have people lined up and ready, which is not something we had before. I don't know why, but it is something that will make a big difference to us. So it's another thing that our HR, working in conjunction with our IT folks to do a lot better in that situation.
Thank you. Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll start off with the same accolades. To me, you're like the great wise owl. You might represent like 2 libraries because you're on the LCB director side, but you were always on the legal side. And so whenever you retire, we're in trouble. But I wanted to kind of follow up on what Senator Gansert was talking about. I was just wondering if we're like thinking about, like, even if we bring on contract hire, there is a specific nuance to drafting and the legal part of what LCB does in this building. And when we lost a lot of people who retired recently, I mean, they walked out of the door with like 25 years of experience. And just maybe thinking about, I know you can't, like, maybe just the staggering of people walking out of the door, so the training. Because one thing that I noticed was some of the new legal folks, they weren't familiar with some of the nuance, like some of the legal issues that probably have been repeated over and over, and it was just new to them. And so they had to really ask a lot more questions versus where I think getting used to just sending it to Yeckley and saying, and she could just pick it up immediately and just be like, I know exactly what you're doing, where you're going, how you're going. And that knowledge creates an efficiency, you know what I mean? Because it limits how much time they need to really try to figure out what are you trying to do. And so I'm just wondering if there's maybe a conversation about just maybe staggering when they're going to exit so that there's some, pacing between the two. Because I know that Kristen's still here, but she's like you.
Thank you. For the record, Brenda Rose. I understand completely what you're talking about, and I probably misspoke a while ago. It dawns on me that we don't actually, we aren't able to contract for bill drafting and those kinds of services because of the federal rules on contracting. These are things that you do in-house. To contract for something legally, it has to be something that you are not providing the absolute rules on how you do the job. That's a gross understatement of that requirement, but we've evaluated that and we don't. We can contract for expertise, but I think that things that you're really talking about are bill drafting, and it's something that it takes a while for people to learn. I wish that we could plan retirements. The thing that the real problem in the legal division is that, again, once somebody gets to about 5 years, when they could really, there's just something about that time, somewhere around there, that you really get enough information to be able to do the things that you were talking about and to get better. During my time in the legal division, what I found is that a large number, I think at some point it was like 40%, I'm not sure where it is now, of our attorneys would leave after 5 years. And the reason for that is that the dollars compared to all the people that you went to law school with, all the, are not matching up at that point. And once you have a knowledge base that you've learned that people are offering you jobs for, it is difficult to keep those people. I have to tell you that I worked really hard on that, and we were able to bring back people that went out into the world, for whatever job. A lot of the people that you see now have gone out and come back, and they'll come back within a year or so. And one of those things is you keep talking to them after they're gone. How's it going for you out there? Remember, you still got a place here. And so we a lot of the people that you mentioned left for a year or so and came back. That's one thing that we can do to help. But honestly, when you have attorneys coming right out of Boyd Law School, almost everybody gets hired there. I think they still have like 100% rate. And the dollars are just not a match at all. So you're really looking for people in the legal field who want to do this job. And we work very hard to hook them on that. Bill drafting is a very interesting, I think very rewarding legal job. But it just our pay just does not compete with the legal world otherwise.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to sort of run through the capital improvement projects that we're asking for. And this list is, we haven't asked for many CIP programs in the past because, usually we were cutting the budget and there was not money available. And what I've been trying to educate people on recently the most is that this building in particular is old, and it has not been maintained in the manner that we probably should have. Through again, you have lean years, and it's very difficult. So a lot of these projects are aimed at that, as well as the first project that I would mention is for the west security entrance. And we are recommending, based on all the information that we have, that we, as soon as we can, build a blast box out there that will hold the security feature for the front of the building. And that gives us an opportunity, once you build the blast box outside this system, you can then build on top of it. So because room is so short here, while we have that opportunity, that base, we have combined that project to add, or suggesting to add, a room on the second and third floors over that blast box, so that it would extend 3100, and actually it would allow us to take the columns out there, so it would be just a bigger open space that you would be able to use, as well as one on the second floor. And then the entryway would be forward through that blast box. So people would come through from the very front of the building, and then you would exit on the sides there of that area. And so that project, we believe, would be something that would be very good to do as quickly as possible. For that reason, we're asking for an appropriation soon of $1,050,000 that would be able to get the plans done, so that that project could be done before the next session of the legislature. As part of that, we are asking for the replacement of the outside of the building, which right now is EFS, that was put on because at the end of the project in 1997, when we built the rest of the building, the other 2/3 of the building, like we're in now, the EFS was put on, and that sort of coating for buildings is meant to be replaced at least every 10 years. We have not been able to keep up with that. It's expensive to redo the whole outside of the building, and we've had a lot of lean years. What's the result of that is that we have a lot of buckets on the first floor of this building. The only place there aren't buckets are in the legal division, because that's a one-story part there. The rest of the building, especially in where my office is, as well as accounting, places in the back, water comes in through the sides of the building where the cracks in the EFS are, and it finds its way, to a stud, to a wire, just makes its way down to the first floor, and that's not good for the building overall, and for the longevity. So we're suggesting that we again, there's a new kind of building outside that has been used successfully in a lot of places, including climates like ours. It consists of about I don't know, what is that, an inch or so, the actual stone, and it's a product that's got backing on it, and that can be sealed, so that the only thing that you need to do in the future after that is power wash it to clean it up, but it would be sealed and seal the building, and I think that would be a very good investment. What we're suggesting, because that's a big project, would be to add that front and then make that decision, and then add that new surface to the front where you build the Westa Security Edition, and then have a additional project that would be ongoing to continue to renovate the rest of all the sides of the building. We also have here for you the cost and ability to show you plans, potential for having a legislative building in the Southern Nevada area. As you know, we have a small area on the fourth floor of the Grant Sawyer building. Initially, when we started doing the plans for this interim, or for this budget, we were told that we would be kicked out of the Grant Sawyer building the day after this session ended, so in June of this year. But that's been extended now, and apparently we would be able to stay there for 3 more years. So what we are able to do, if you want to build a building there and provide for office space, and the other thing that we have seen a great need for is more teleconference rooms, so that the meetings from the during session can be, and the interim, but can be video conference to the a site in Southern Nevada. We only have two meeting rooms, large meeting rooms in our area in the Grant Sawyer building currently, and those are always full, and people have emergencies, and so it's not always clear which committee is going to meet there. So if you had meeting rooms that matched up to the meeting rooms here, you could actually have all of your meetings teleconferenced during session, so that people from the South could attend the meetings more frequently, easily, and you would have, again, offices for legislators, all of those things. The specifics of that could be developed to ensure that you would be able to have what you want, but we do have a plan for that. We have we're also asking for to put a roof over the existing parking garage here. As you know, it was shut for about, I think, 7 months, this interim, because we had to actually fix it. It was, at one point, we found that there was so much rust and water damage that they said we were going to have to destroy it. We found some folks who helped with the UNR parking garage, and basically just rehabbed it. But the problem is the more water that is on the top that goes down through the bottom again can destroy the thing. And the covering or the coating that you put on is very expensive, but that's what keeps the water from going through. And obviously, again, maintenance, in the lean years, we didn't always do that. And if we want to keep that garage, I think that it would be cost efficient to put a flat roof across the top of it. It would not enclose the top. The sides would still be open, but it would provide shade in the summer. And we're suggesting that we put solar panels on there. The project is more expensive to start because you build that roof, but then as solar panels needed to be replaced in 20 to 30 years, you would just be putting the new solar panels and you would have a place to put them already. We believe this would, the payout for that would be 19 years or less. In other words, the energy savings would, and that would cover the cost of it. And in the future, that payoff would be even more as you added new solar panels. We also have a number of projects that, like the boiler replacement, the ADA restroom upgrade project. We need flooring. A lot of the carpet is about 20 years old, and that's generally, you would replace it before then. And we're suggesting that we replace it with the floor tiles instead of the carpet, so that as you have holes and things, you can actually. It's a better system to keep everything without having to go ahead and do all of the flooring at the same time. We have some old elevators in this building as well. We had rehabbed them. Most of them last about 4 years ago, and we need to do that again. We also have parking lots on the surface around this building across 5th Street. Those parking lots that we have are, the curbs are going away, and especially the one in front of or to the south of the Sedway office building, it is, the curbs are disintegrating and the asphalt is in bad shape. So we also need to re-asphalt those and correct some of the curbs. We need a new our server room air conditioning unit is old, and we believe it needs to be replaced as well. And then we have some asks for ground equipment. We actually do have a dump truck. It's about 30 years old. It's on its last legs, and it was very important. It's for grounds and the things that we do here, but mostly for snow removal. Very recently, it's been very critical so that we can get that snow off-site. And we are very responsible in where we put the snow. We made sure that the people that allowed us to put the snow there, and we did not put it by any houses, which happened with other governmental entities that we were blamed for, if you saw that in the news or anything. It was not us. We were very careful with where we dumped our snow. But we had tons of it. We were able to get 21 more parking spaces cleared the other day by just taking the snow off of that. But there has been a lot of snow here recently, so that's an interesting dynamic that I didn't know anything about. I think the last thing that we would like to recommend to you is that you consider putting in a new office building across 5th Street. The Sedway office building is completely full. It is overfull. The SPO building is full. This building is full. I think that if you want to have more attorneys, for example, if you want to have larger those staffs, it's time that you. And we, just so you know, the first thing we looked at actually was whether you could fill in the opening in this building and just make it, not have that atrium at all. And the cost to that is actually more, would be more if you did it on a full scale so that you didn't have an atrium at all, would actually be almost more than a new building. And so if you built a new building across 5th Street, you could also have more garage space in it, so more parking, as well as if you wanted to, you could have a sky bridge over to this building that would keep everybody dry and safe. And that could be used either for just for staff, or you could have legislators' offices. There's some legislators that I've been in where the legislators' offices were actually not in the same building with the chambers. So I think you have a lot of options there that we're just suggesting that we look at. I'm happy to answer. I'm sorry. We have, in addition to the building things, we have the things that we need to respond to the needs that you have now, which is a BPS control room upgrade. We need hardware and server infrastructure replacement, audio, video, and telecommunications system upgrades. As we increase what we're doing, plus it's mostly that these things change greatly over years, and you have to be really careful because if you don't do the upgrades regularly, pretty soon then the whole product that you have to replace it because it's not upgradable anymore. And then the very last thing that we're asking for there is it's 143,000 or 141,000 something to shorten our email addresses so that it's called the domain upgrade, and it's something that I've been asking for a while, just so that you don't. It's our email addresses are difficult and cause some communication issues and some. So that's just something that we could do as well that would be helpful. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I think we'll start with the questions from Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do have two, if that's okay, to be brief. You mentioned the upgrades to the servers and software. Is that, I think all of us are going to be interested, is that going to include an upgrade to the broadband so that we're not constantly dropping internet throughout the day?
Actually, for the record, Brenda Erdos, actually that is going to happen within the next 2 weeks. We're going to get the equipment. We needed a new router. It was inadequate, and so we have made the deal. And again, we should have we're hoping to get it in about 2 weeks. I'm not sure how much after that, but hopefully not too long after that you'll actually see the results of that.
That's very good news. I think I speak for all of us to say thank you for that. And then my next question is in regards to the expansion of the entrance. I think we've all had conversations that we probably need additional legal or staff, and so we'll need additional space. The cost, though, of the actual blast box itself, what is the difference between just expanding the building out with and without the actual blast box?
For the record, Brenda Erdos, I apologize. I will get that number to you. I don't have that right now.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? It will be interesting to get the price difference between the glass box and the non-glass box, but my question would be, the reason for the glass box is for safety. We're at a different time in history, and this building was built a long time ago when some of the things that we're dealing with serving in public service, our predecessors didn't have to deal with. So that glass box would be safer for us legislators, the staff, and everyone coming into the building. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, for the record, Brenda Erdos, not only that, but it would protect the building. If there was a blast inside the building, if you had it there, then because the building is from 1969, the base there for the front, it would be, the destruction would be great. And this is a way to make that just have no destruction to the structure itself. And I think that could be very valuable.
Thank you. And then my last question, I think it's my last question. Being a Southern Nevada legislator, I am excited about having a building that would be our own down south, both for me as a legislator, but also for the constituents down south. There's been a lot of conversation about retrofitting and repairing and improving Grant Sawyer. Do you know what the difference in the price would be for the retrofit of Grant Sawyer as opposed to the brand-new building built in Southern Nevada for the legislature.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Brenda Erdos, we can try to work up something. If you're asking about turning in if you want to compare those two buildings, I think the first thing that you would have to remember that you would be very limited in what you could do in terms of putting for example, having hearing rooms that didn't have columns and that were big enough. There are a lot of restrictions on that you really can't fix, but we can look at that, and I think that one of the things that we are possibly being able to do on the new building side is to there's some property that we might be able to secure that we would not pay for the value of the property, so it would be given to us, and that would considerably reduce the cost of the new building as well. But we believe that we can build it for a good building for a very conservative dollar amount per square foot. So I'll be happy to work up something. Well, actually, I won't. I'll be happy to work with our buildings folks because they have the knowledge to be able to do that and get that to you.
Great, thank you. I think we have one last question from Senator Nguyen.
Thank you. I really like the idea of having a location, especially to meet constituents right now. While I enjoy meeting people on my front yard, I could do without the numerous trips to the local coffee shop all the time to meet people, and sometimes it's not conducive to privacy or larger groups. So I think that is definitely needed. Can I ask you a question? I know that we currently just have that fourth floor, a portion of that fourth floor, it's my understanding, in the Grant Sawyer building, and that we rent that. What are those rent costs like right now as we speak, if you know? Oh, I see some frantic texting or typing here.
We do pay.
Actually, if you don't mind, I can get those for you and get them to you. Then we'll get you the accurate amount.
No, I think that would be great. And if
Okay.
that's inclusive, I'd like a number that's inclusive of all the costs that go into what our rent is on a monthly basis or a yearly basis for that. Because it seems
We
like
can
we're
definitely
kind of
provide that.
Potentially throwing a lot of money away. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's an excellent question. And if you can supply that to our fiscal analysts and they can get it to everyone on the committee, that would be great. See no other questions? All right, then we will close this presentation. We thank you again, and once again, thank you and the work of your entire team. We couldn't do the work that we do for the people of Nevada without the amazing team here at LCB. Thank you. With that, members, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is the Gaming Control Board. And we'll invite you to the table. And you can start as soon as you're set up and ready.
Good morning, Chair Monroe Moreno, Chair Dondero Loop. Good morning, members of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means and Senate Committee on Finance. My name is Kirk Hendrick, and I am Chair of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. With me today are Nathan Riggle, Deputy Chief of the Board's Administrative Division, and Mike Morton, the Board's Senior Policy Counsel. And in the audience is Andrew Tucker, the Board's IT Manager. Present in Las Vegas via video conference is Board Member George Assad, and also Jim Barbie, the Chief of the board's technology division. It's an honor to be here today in front of you and present the board's proposed budget for the upcoming biennium. We prepared a presentation deck for today's hearing to go through the board's budget and the Nevada Gaming Commission budget. I'm proud to say that the Nevada Gaming Control Board is considered by many as the premier gaming regulator throughout the world. The board is recognized for effectiveness in ensuring gaming in Nevada is conducted honestly, competitively, and free from corruptive elements. The board's mission statement set forth on slide 2 for your reference. The board is comprised of approximately 400 full-time employees, including 44 that serve as the board and commission's general administration, 122 post-certified peace officers, 117 positions that audit and review all non-restricted licensees and handle tax collections, 43 positions that support the board's gaming lab and internal IT needs, and 76 positions for investigation of all gaming license applications and ongoing monitoring of publicly traded corporations. Pursuant to NRS 463-080, the board is primarily comprised of unclassified employees. That is part of a framework that was created by the legislature almost 70 years ago to provide the board with flexibility to strictly regulate the state's important and ever-changing gaming industry. The slide and graph on slide 5 illustrates the board's general fund collections by fiscal year and shows that the board collected approximately $1.1 billion in fiscal year 2022. Similarly, slide 6 illustrates the board's expenditures on fiscal year by fiscal year. For fiscal year 22, the board's collections to the general fund were just over 1/5 of the general fund before application of tax credits. On slide 8, the board's budget is quite fiscally respectable in relationship to the enormous size of Nevada's gaming industry. Reports are that Nevada gaming industry is roughly 25% of all regulated gaming activity in the United States. And the board effectively regulates such a large industry with a budget on par with some of the smaller gaming jurisdictions across the country. The next few slides highlight some of the current challenges and trends experienced by the board. Gaming technology continues to expand at a rapid pace throughout all facets of the industry. Accordingly, the board continually must evolve how it assesses, monitors, and audits licensees. The board must also diligently ensure that its technology division has the necessary resources and expertise to effectively regulate the fast-paced industry and simultaneously ensure that the industry can remain robust and competitive. Part of that competitiveness is coming from the national expansion of sports betting, which resulted as the United States Supreme Court overturned the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act in 2017. Additionally, here in Nevada, there's been noticeable growth in the esports industry and discussion on potential increase in wagering on esports. Recognizing that growth, the legislature passed Senate Bill 165 last session, creating the Esports Technical Advisory Committee. That committee recently completed its first policy recommendations to the board to streamline the approval process for wagering on esports with a goal of expanding the market for licensees and the betting public alike. The gaming industry continues to grow in complexity from the way that individuals and entities apply for licensure to the way that personal mobile devices interact with gaming machines. Consequently, the board must continue evolving to meet its statutory mandate of strictly regulating a very demanding industry that is so vital to Nevada's economy. Another item of interest is the increase in cyber attacks experienced by licensees here in Nevada. To combat this, the board and commission recently enacted regulations to ensure that the board and the public have the information necessary to protect themselves from future attacks. Like all industries, an increase in employment vacancies is also a real concern to the gaming and hospitality industry. Compared to the job market prior to the pandemic, the industry is down approximately 30,000 jobs, a significant shortage, especially at a time when the industry is doing record levels of business. Because of these market and job trends, the industry is searching for ways to operate more efficiently. That can include more automation on the gaming floor and therefore concurrent need to regulate such advancements. An enormous bright spot for the industry in the state is a substantial, sustained increase in gaming win, with 23 consecutive months of billion-dollar amounts. Of course, continuing such record numbers presents both an opportunity and a challenge to the industry. as impeding economic challenges to the domestic and global economies could result in increased unemployment and a decline in tourism. Fortunately, the industry should be able to withstand any such downturn, as the financial health of gaming licensees is strong and liquidity is at record levels. Focusing now internally, the board, like many state agencies, is experiencing employee retention issues. Of particular concern is that the board has lost a significant number of employees to other governmental and law enforcement agencies. Many of those losses occurred after the board spent considerable time and resources to train the employees. The board currently has 32 vacancies, 21 of which are unclassified, comprised mostly of agent positions across 4 divisions. As a result of retirements and resignations over the past biennium, the board has experienced a significant loss of institutional knowledge. Other internal challenges include the continued funding of the board's budget through investigative fees, which is an unpredictable method of budgeting. The funding method is unpredictable because license applications and the complexity of those applications are not filed by licensees on any regular or scheduled basis. The next 3 slides provide a snapshot of the board's proposed budget, proposed enhancements, and the Nevada Gaming Commission budget. For purposes of today's hearing, I'd like to focus on the board's enhancement priorities. Slides 15 and 16 will contain a list of the board's enhancement priorities and all other requested enhancements, which I will go through in more detail. Starting with E226, the board is requesting 4 new positions for the board's information technology section to support the software and applications created by the Alpha Migration Project, which I will mention further in a moment. The application developer and SQL database administrator positions are requested for fiscal year 24, while the system administrator and quality assurance engineer positions are requested to start in fiscal year 2025. E227 is a request for 2 new positions for the Audit Division's Information Technology Audit Group. This is to address the growing demand for technological advancements in the gaming industry. These positions should be hired as certified public accountants or certified information security auditors. That will strengthen the board's ability to properly audit licensees. The next few slides depict in greater detail the board's proposed compensation plan with the goal of setting the board up for long-term personnel successes. The board's unclassified positions are lagging behind similar positions in state service. Recently, there were positions across other agencies with similar duties that received a 2 or 3-step increase while board salaries remain the same. As listed here, you will see that the goal is to bring these agents up to an equivalent of a classified grade 38, step 10, while maintaining at least a 5% or 1-step equivalent gap between positions. On slide 20, the chart indicates a salary gap between the Gaming Control Board agent when compared to other similar positions in state service, as well as how we believe that proposed compensation plan would be fixed by moving those agents up to be comparable with other state employees. The board has been experiencing significant talent loss due to compensated-related issues. In fiscal year 2022, 46 unclassified employees separated from the board. Of those separations, the board determined that 78% of them were avoidable. Additionally, 10 of the 46 were employed by the board for less than a year, and 11 transferred to other government jobs. The audit and enforcement divisions accounted for half of those avoidable separations. Revenue growth in the gaming industry has been strong and sustained, up 70% since the board's last substantial pay increase in fiscal year 2002. In order for the board to hire and retain qualified employees, this proposed compensation plan would need to be in addition to any statewide cost of living adjustments provided by the legislature. One of the board's additional priorities is increasing its training budget. The board is requesting a restoration of the $29,000 reduction that occurred during the 31st special session of the legislature, and to use $15,000 in each of the next 2 fiscal years to certify 2 employees as certified information system auditors in the gaming lab. The board also is proposing approximately $80,000 a year to create a comprehensive training program for its information technology section. There have been several new technology advances in systems at the board, and the IT section needs the appropriate skills to create a secure environment for those systems. Slides 25 and 26 detail minor hardware and software enhancements requested by the board to comply with state technology policies, ensure that all board offices operate on the same phone systems, and upgrade decades-old hardware. The board is also requesting funding to perform a cyber assessment and security network penetration testing, and also introduce multi-factor authentication and software assist in classifying and identifying information stored by the board. The board also proposes hardware and software upgrades for the gaming lab to convert physically stored disks to a storage area network. The lab currently stores thousands of CDs, DVDs, and similar media related to device software code that were submitted to the lab over decades for licensing and approval applications. Some of this media has a limited shelf life, which this request would fix, as well as achieving greater security and tracking capabilities. The next few slides detail the board's ongoing Alpha Migration Project, or AMP, which some of you are probably aware. The board's Alpha computer system started in the early 1980s, and it served the board well for several decades. However, Alpha is long overdue for retirement. Unfortunately, the board is still partially reliant on the Alpha system. A system has limited capabilities, poor access, poor management functions, security concerns, and other troublesome attributes. The board has been working to migrate the Alpha COBOL-based system to the board's new System and Gaming Enterprise, or SAGE, system. SAGE is enhancing the functionality of the board's systems for both internal and external users, including licensees, applicants, and gaming employees. The AMP to SAGE process has produced some very good results for the board. However, the migration is, quite frankly, not getting done fast enough. And I could sit here and give you reasons why, possibly excuses why, but the most important thing is that at the current pace, SAGE is not near completion. You will see that when the board's budget was originally prepared last year, that the board requested $3.6 million in the biennium for the project, along with additional board staff developers that we discussed earlier. Apparently, there was a belief that the migration project was nearing completion when that request was put into the budget. I understand that one-time requests are handled via separate bill and hearings, so I won't go into detail on these remaining slides, but I will say that I wanted to be fully transparent to this committee today, and I wanted to be sure that you understood that what was originally put in the budget was not accurate. And I will save the discussion for another day, and the slides that you have remaining in your deck, we will go through in more detail at the appropriate time. And that concludes the board's presentation. I, of course, want to thank the LCB staff for all of their help in preparing for today's hearing. Thank all of you for your time, and we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. We do have a few questions, and there may be some questions on the SAGE project, although you didn't go into detail in your presentation. So we will start our questioning with Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask questions related to the 4 permanent positions requested for information technology staff. So it's my understanding that the contracted support for the systems and gaming enterprise system is anticipated through 25-27 biennium. So can you explain why 4 permanent state positions are recommended for the 23-25 biennium?
For the record, Kirk Hendrick, it may be best, we have Chief Barbie from the Technology Division at the hearing table in Las Vegas. If it's appropriate, maybe we could have him answer that question. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning. My name is Jim Barbie, B-A-R-B-E-E. I'm the Chief of the Game Control Board's Technology Division. Thank you for the question. And the reason for the 4 positions is to have board staff become more familiar with the development and maintenance process for this project as we ramp down with the vendor in the next biennium. This would allow those board staff to work more side by side and develop the skill sets that will be necessary to maintain this project on a go-forward basis.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You said a couple times that you would go into this further later because it was inaccurate information. Why was it inaccurate information and what was inaccurate? I know you want to wait, but I think that that's important for us to understand.
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop. The reason I didn't want to go through each of those slides, and I'm happy to do, is I didn't want to take up your time during the budget hearing. My understanding is that this would be a one-time request, and of course there'd be a separate bill for that. So I expected we would have further discussion. Happy to go into it. Specifically to answer your question, I quite frankly don't know. I started this job 7 weeks ago. I've been digging into this for the past couple of weeks. I don't know why it was missed by so much. But as I said, I wanted to be completely transparent and tell you that the request for $3.6 million, which, as the chief mentioned, Gaming Control Board has its own developers that have been working in conjunction with the outside developer over the past several years and would continue to, as the outside developer stops their work, internal developers will continue to maintain the system, continue to add applications. It is not at that stage. We are, as you'll see in here, we met with actually teleconferenced with the outside developer on Wednesday of this week and grilled them a little bit on that specific question. We thought we were on the downturn here. What will it take to finish this project in the next 2 years? And that's where they came up with a $3.5 million request, along with state developers continuing to work side by side with them. I will also tell you that this contract, when it was originally created, was done as a time and materials contract. I don't know why that was done. As an attorney, I think that was a mistake, but I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm just saying that you wouldn't build a house on time and materials because the house would never get done. Again, not blaming anybody, but the request that was made to you was inaccurate.
A follow-up, Madam Chair. So do you have, just because I don't know, do you have staff under you that were there when this decision was made?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Yes, there's a few people left. Most, of course, are gone by now. But yes, there are a few that are still with the board.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming that they may have some information that might help ferret this out. And I would just say from my point of view, and I am not chairing this committee today, but I would just say from my point of view, when we hear from you, we're here. That's why we're here, to hear from you, so don't ever feel like you can't give us that information or you're saving us time, because I think that when we're allocating funds from the state, we need to have all the information that we can, and that's what this body does. So I look forward to hearing more about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I will say ditto to what she just said. So if we look at slide 29, the request originally was for the 3.6 million, but it says the actual funding needing will be 13.5. What is the total amount this SAGE, this Alpha Migration Project integration, will cost? Do you know what that total bottom line will be? The money that we've had already been spent on it, the 3.6, the 13.5, what is the total amount?
Thank you. Kirk Hendrick for the record. I would refer that question to either Deputy Chief Riggle or Chief Barbie with the chair's permission.
Thank you.
Got that?
Deputy Chief Nathan Riggle, R-I-G-G-L-E, for the record.
Could you move your mic?
Sorry, R-I-G-G-L-E, Nathan Riggle, Deputy Chief of the Administration Division. So to date, legislative funds, we have spent $14.288 million, as well as $4.383 million in federal forfeiture funds, and then which is 18.672 plus the 13 gets us over $30 million.
Alrighty then. So then my next question, that's a heck of a lot of money. How long will it take to complete the project? And by the time this project is completed, will it already be outdated?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Yes, Chair. What we have put in here is the conversation literally had on Wednesday that we asked the outside developer, what will it take to finish this project by summer of 2025? So in other words, near, I can't say exactly when, but near the end of the next biennium, and that was the number they came up with, 13.5 million. So that includes the 3.6 that you see here, so roughly another $10 million to finish it in 2 years. And again, if we were to do that, we would obviously have to work with purchasing, amend the agreement. I would only be willing to do that if the contract was turned into a deliverables-based agreement, which means you frame the house, we pay you for framing. You drywall the house, we pay you for drywall. We don't pay until they complete a section of the software development project.
Thank you for that. And are you working with the same developer that has been working on this project the entire time, or is it a new developer that can get it done in the timely manner?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Excellent question. I had the exact same question. It is the same developer. Their company's name was Cyber. They were bought a while back, a year or so ago, I believe, by a very large, very respectable company, HTC Global Services. But yes, it has been the same developer all along. Like I said, I've only been looking into this for a couple of weeks. I have not seen anything that leads me to believe that there was fraud, to believe that there's been any misuse of funds, but I believe that the way the contract was designed didn't leave anybody not driving the train, but they weren't driving the train very fast. And I don't blame that on the outside developer. I don't blame that on staff. I'm not here to blame it on anybody. I'm seeing a problem. I'm trying to fix it. To your question earlier about if we get it done in 2 years, having started it over 10 years ago by that point, will it even be effective at that point? I'm being told yes. I am not a technological guy, but as you all have probably heard, COBOL is a retired system. We have to get off of COBOL because it has all kind of vulnerabilities. This language is SQL. Structured query language, which is designed to be a product that can continue to be used. So that I will say on the people who built this project, they did that part right.
Thank you for that. And it appears having you in this position, there'll be some side rails and a little bit more accountability on the timing of the work being done. So thank you for that. I'll move on to our next question that will be from Assemblywoman Gorlo.
Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to go and back and talk a little bit about the vacancies, especially in the technology division. You're asking for 4 more positions. So do you anticipate any trouble hiring for those positions? And what kind of qualifications, I'm kind of thinking like on the education part, what could we do to help not only you but other divisions on having our students take paths that will lead to filling these vacancies?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Yes, thank you for that question. As you probably are hearing from all state agencies, it's very difficult based on what the state pays to hire qualified and experienced people. I can't get too far involved in the technology educational background because it's not my expertise. Perhaps Chief Barbie could add a little bit more. But the 4 new positions are to take over some of this development as we continue this AMP project, as well as to continue to develop after the outside vendor's done. We have a lot of challenges, as you will hear from all of your state agencies, for hiring technology-educated individuals. It's part of what Director Erdo said earlier. The state needs to be something, and I used to work for the Attorney General's office, it has to be a passion. It has to be a belief that you are making a difference, because if it was about money, about the time the government, or in this case, the board, has educated you, you get offers from a lot of outside agencies. Our biggest concern is we're losing state-trained board agents to other state agencies. That one's a little weird to me. I'm trying to figure that out. But we will do our best to recruit at the university level and then continue to train them to specifically answer your question.
Just thank you very much.
Senator Neal, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm thinking through the testimony that's been brought forward on the Alpha Migration Project, and then the statements about having the knowledge around technology so that the appropriate vendor questions, responses, time development is actually occurring. And so I guess in my mind, with the ask of the board will need an additional 13.5 million, what will actually be adjusted other than you researching and trying to find out what's happening with the vendor and trying to adjust those the pacing of the contract? What really will be adjusted to make sure that the 13.5 million is not further, I guess, I don't want to use the word wasted, but I'm really thinking wasted.
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Thank you, Senator. Excellent question. The deliverable-based agreement, which is the way this needs to be done, will not pay the outside vendor until they finish a piece of the development. So if there is waste, they won't be paid. To your earlier question of how does the structure work, what's happened over the past several years, the outside vendor hires people based on what the board has approval to spend. So in other words, if we got the ability to spend $3.6 million in the next biennium, they will hire, let's say, roughly 8 or 9 developers to work on this project at the same time working with the Game Control Board employees. If we give them $13.5 million in the next biennium, they will double or 2.5 times that number of employees. They will structure up their ability to speed up their timeline because they get paid based on when they complete the project. That, I hope, answers your question. It's kind of the same question I've been having myself.
It does. And then I have a follow-up question on the qualifications of the new recommended audit agents for the Information Technology Audit Group, and how do they differ from the current agents within the audit division?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. If I may, Chair, I believe Chief Barbie would be the best to answer that question.
Good morning, Jim Barbie for the record. Senator, the audit skill set would be, it would be a unique facet to the audit skill set for those staff members to have the information technology background in addition to their education on generally accepted accounting principles. So you could think of it along the lines of an attorney who specializes. This would be an auditor who specializes.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Ganser?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow up on part of the discussion around the software, around the updates. We've had issues across the state for years whenever we have big projects like this. And so when it was asked about how this will be different, you talked about the milestones and being paid, the contract to be paid upon milestones. You know, something that we've used before, we've suggested using our project managers, right? So you've got someone who works directly for the Gaming Control Board to be able to oversee the progress and make sure they're hitting their milestones. So that's one thing that could be considered. And then the other question would be around penalties. We've also had vendors just quit on us, right? So we get really deep into a contract and then they walk away and we spent a large sum of money for an incomplete project. So it's something else to consider if you're going to redo the contract so that we're not left spending a bunch of money and still not having the outcomes and the completion that we need. So I don't know if you've considered that. I guess that's a question for you.
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Thank you, Senator. Yes, as an attorney, I've considered all of those. Not being a government attorney for quite some time, I believe we will need to work with purchasing because this agreement, as you will see, is quite old at this point. We'll need to find out if it can even be amended or if they'll need to send it out to a separate RFP and bid. If that were to happen, it will slow this process down 6, 8, 9 months, I'm sure. I don't know if the current vendor wins that agreement, but if they do, we will be working with the Attorney General's office to add in all the kind of belt and suspenders that we possibly can.
Thank you. And a follow-up, Madam Chair. You know, my last question would be whether we need to have a contractor to complete this project, if we need to bid and open it up to potentially other contractors finishing this off, because when you look at the price of it, I feel like in some respects we're being held hostage because we're so far down the road with them, yet the project's incomplete, and it does sound like they're using a software that SQR, yeah, that's L, that's my computer science major friend over here, colleague, is better, you know, of course, than COBOL, but also staying at the forefront. So are you also considering just, if you're unable to amend the contract, opening up an RFP to maybe consider another contractor doing this work?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Yes, it's possible that state purchasing may require that to happen based on the size and the scope of this agreement. Personally, from what I've seen in the last couple of weeks in trying to dig into this, I believe that the current vendor is the right vendor because they're 48% of the way done. They already understand all the nuances of working with the board. They understand the nuances of the system, and they currently have multiple developers working on it. I'm sure they would bid if it happened, but I'm all about the fact that if they're not the right vendor, we need the right vendor. I would just hate to lose another 8 or 9 months of the project. One of the things I will say that happened on the project is due to COVID funding, we lost approximately, I believe it was $7 million, which stopped the project. And as Deputy Chief Riggle mentioned, we were fortunate enough to be able to supplement that time when money was taken back. We were able to get federal forfeiture funding of approximately $4 million that could only be worked on enforcement due to forfeiture rules, but that kept the project going. The outside vendor was nimble enough to work with us on that, but again, that could be a purchasing question more than a board question. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the detailed answers and presentation. I'm going to kind of move into a different area, and that would be the investigations and everything. Again, looking at some background information about how many individuals have left the Gaming Control Board and everything. Do you believe, however, that there will be enough funds coming from the will there be sufficient investigation fees to be able to pay for the increase? It looks like to fund the associated salaries and salary increase, because I think sometimes the investigations help pay that. So do you believe that that is something that could actually happen?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Yes, based on the budgeting that's been put together, it was done before I got here, but I've reviewed it. There should be enough money to cover the additional compensation because that's across board employees. The issue about the investigative funding, investigation pays for itself. That entire division is paid for out of application fees and license fees. It's just an unpredictable base. So if you don't have a lot of major casinos or restricted locations start new during a particular year and file applications and investigations, you have a little bit of a roller coaster ride depending on how many applications happen each year. But if the money is paid in, the compensation base is accurate.
Up, if I may. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that clarification with that, because when I look at investigations, I think, oh, that means people are also going in. So how often do you actually investigate or make sure that these items are being done correctly for the casinos? Is there like a schedule, or every 3 to 5 years? Is there a goal to be able to visit this information?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. Audit is more on a schedule. It goes in and audits each licensee on a non-restricted basis. The goal for them to do that is every 2.5 years. Investigations is more of an ongoing basis. A new casino obviously has to get fully licensed. You have different layers of publicly traded corporations. You have layers of holding entities and intermediary entities. You have key employee applications. You have officer director applications, registrations. That is your application fees and your license fees. So again, you wouldn't really know a schedule, because you don't know how many people are going to either move from an existing location or start a new location. This particular year, we have some large properties that will clip.
Thank you, and I just have a few questions before we wrap it up. When slide 21, going through the whole presentation, there's a lot of positions that are called agent positions. I come from a background in law enforcement. So you have people in auditing, enforcing, investigation, tax, your CPAs, but they're all considered agents. First question, why was that decision made? Second question, how many of those agents are actual post-certified officers? And are they a category 1, 2, or 3?
Thank you, Chair. Kirk Hendrick for the record. As to why the board names agents for enforcement agents, tax agents, audit agents, investigation agents, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. We can certainly go back and look at the history of why that was done, but I think the idea was they are actually badge-carrying agents, because they go into properties and they do have rights, statutory rights as an agent, but I'm not sure they were all called agents. To your question about law enforcement agents, enforcement has 94 enforcement unclassified agents that are post-certified, and those are, actually, I'm seeing my note here is there's 122 post-certified across the entire board, but my understanding is those are category 2 post.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And then we'll wrap it up with questions from Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to ask questions on slide 6 really quick. I know we've kind of jumped around, but it was interesting to me the growth that happened in the expenditures in FY 2020 when we were closed for COVID. So I was just super interested if you could break that down, and then I had a question on slide 9.
Mike Morton for the record. Senator, so the increased expenditures that you see on slide 6 for FY 2020, that's all board expenditures, and so we do have access to federal forfeiture funding through our task forces with the FBI, the IRS, the Department of Treasury, and based on the health and safety policies that were put in place by the administration at the time, our enforcement agents were working a vast amount of overtime to ensure that casino properties were following all of the health and safety protocols. And so that's why you see the increased expenditure in FY20.
Okay, thank you for that. Because they were closed, so I was just, that was why that was strange to me. So I have more of a question on slide 9 around the you have the intersection of the personal mobile devices and gaming that's not mobile gaming. And had an interest in whether or not that was apps, and if this is more of a kind of a digital growth that's not like, are you having people creating apps that are not regulated within the system and then people are gaming on it?
Kirk Hendrick for the record. If I may, Chair, Senator, I would allow Chief Barbie to answer that question.
For the record, Jim Barbie. Thank you, Senator. The mobile applications that we're seeing are used indirectly with gaming activity, and they are manufactured, though, by entities who are either licensed as a gaming manufacturer or registered with the board as associated equipment manufacturers. These type of applications may be those that a patron can use to identify themselves at a slot machine. For example, you may be familiar with cards that are commonly used now with players clubs. There are applications that supplement those cards that instead of carrying a card, I can go up to a slot machine and identify myself by using an application. I can also use those applications to potentially redeem patron rewards for gaming activity, translate those to gaming credits, and then move those credits via the application down to the slot machine. What's key here, though, is that at no time is that application actually communicating with the gaming device itself. It's communicating through peripherals that are somewhat segregated from the gaming device to keep the safety and security of that device intact. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, seeing none, I will thank you so much for joining us today and for your presentation. And with that, we will close the budget hearing for Nevada Gaming Control Board. And we will move on to the last item on our agenda for today, members, and that is public comment. If you are listening and you'd like to call in with public comment, we ask that you dial 888-475-4499. The meeting ID for today is 831-986-99721, and then please press pound. If we have anyone here in Carson City that would like to make public comment, I invite you to the table. Seeing none. And by the looks of it, there's no one left in Las Vegas. So I'll ask BPS, do we have anyone joining us on the phone line that would like to make public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now.
Good morning. Could you all hear me? I am at the gym, so I apologize for the background noise.
Good morning. We can hear you.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is, and the committee, my name is Dora Martinez. I represent the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition, and I want to thank Assemblywoman Tracy Brown May for her comment regarding inclusion and equity for people with disability. Appreciate that. Madam Chair, I want you to know that I tried to submit my public comment, and to those of you that know me, I am blind, and I was not able to access the website independently. So 2 years ago, we worked, before he retired, Rick Coombs. He was very helpful, and the website was accessible. But now, during this 80-second session, it's impossible for a blind user to access it independently unless I get some help from a sighted person. So if the director, Brenda Erdos, would be so kindly to return our email, because I did email her pertaining to this issue, because it is our right to be involved, so that way we can be proactive with you all. It would be greatly appreciated. And also I want to thank Assemblywoman Cohen. I don't know if you all are aware, but there is now, she was she made possible for the accessible door in the front, because 2 or 3 years ago it wasn't there before. So thank you to you, and have a great TGIF. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other callers?
Chair, there are no other callers at this time.
Thank you so much. So members, that brings us to the end of today's meeting. I wish you all a wonderful weekend, and I will see you bright and early on Monday morning. This meeting is adjourned.